All right, we are back on the record. We'll call it 5:10, or it's 5:09, but I intend, depending on how the witness goes, how the evidence goes, to go for another hour and a half until 6:40, and we'll take a break then and figure out how long it ought to be. But I do intend to keep going because I would like to finish this proceeding tonight because of the incredible difficulty in making this happen given the schedules of so many different people. So just wanted to make that clear for folks. Thank you. So with that, let's begin. Mr. Duffy, you are on the stand, so you know the drill. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you give us your name again, please?
Eric Duffy.
And Mr. Duffy, you are the municipal manager for the town and village of Woodstock, Vermont.
That's correct.
And is it okay if I just cut your record today?
Sure.
Thank you. So we just heard, you just told us you are the municipal manager. How long have you held that position?
2 years and almost 2 months.
Okay. And where did you work before that?
In Massachusetts, I was the town accountant and budget director in the town of Stoneham. I was a business manager for the city of Salem, and I was the police budget director in the city of Lowell. And before that, I worked in the auditor's office.
Okay. So total, how many years of municipal governance have you worked?
I'm on my 8th. I started in 2017.
Okay. And what did you do before that?
I worked in nonprofit. So I worked for the American Cancer Society, creating community events and fundraising. Before that, I worked for the Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program out of Colchester, Vermont, resettling refugees who came to America.
Okay, thank you.
Can I trouble you to just speak loudly and a little bit slowly?
Sorry.
You've got
Sorry.
a Massachusetts accent. We all know it's hard to hear, so please just speak up.
I apologize.
Thanks. Don't apologize for having the Mass accent, but
I do sometimes up here.
go on. Thank you.
All right. As a Vermont municipal manager, is one of the things within your authority is hiring a chief of police?
Yes.
Okay. And is it also making disciplinary decisions with regard to a chief of police?
Yes.
Okay. And did you appoint Joe Swanson to the position of chief of police?
Yes.
Okay. And was that in July of 2023?
I'm going to object to the characterization of appoint. It was a contract after a nationwide search. That's not appointing.
And what do you think the characterization ought to be?
Hired.
Okay, objection noted for the record. I don't see why it matters one way or the other, but your objection's noted.
We just heard Attorney Fraz say it was a nationwide search. Do you have any information about that characterization, whether that's accurate or not?
It is accurate. We hired a third party to work with us. I believe they posted the job in numerous locations. One of them might have been the International Chiefs Police Association. And we did get candidates from outside the region who applied.
Okay. Do you recall how many total candidates there were?
I believe around 10 applied. I think we interviewed 4 or 5 in the first round, memory serves.
And was at that time Sergeant Swanson, I guess, at the time?
Yes, he was one who applied, and he was in the first round interviews.
Okay. He was a sergeant at the time he applied, if you remember?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And as we heard council mention, there was an employment agreement signed between Chief Swanson and the municipality.
Correct.
Okay. We're gonna be looking at some of the exhibits in that book. Do you think you can pull it forward away from the microphone? And let's take a look at Exhibit 1. And I will ask you, you have it there?
I do.
Okay, take a look. Let me know when you've seen what it is.
Yep.
Is that a copy of the employment agreement entered into by the village and Joe Swanson?
Yes, it is.
And you signed it as the town manager?
Municipal manager, but yes.
Municipal manager, yeah. And it's July 14, 2023.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to section 13, which is on page 4 of the document. You see it there?
I do, yes.
Okay. And in 13.2, there's a discussion of under what circumstances then once he became chief, Chief Swanson could be terminated from the position, right?
Correct.
Okay. And we see that it says you may only be terminated for cause,
Yes.
except for the initial 1-year probation period.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's a sentence at the end of that paragraph 2, which says for cause includes, but is not limited to, any of the reasons set forth in the employer personnel policies.
Correct.
Okay. And let me also ask you about, on the next page, section 13.2C, where it says effective termination. We see another sentence there. It reads, in the event the employee is terminated for cause as per the personnel policy, and then it states what some obligations would be, correct?
Yes.
All right. So the contract, the agreement talks about the personnel policy defines what is just cause for termination.
Yes.
All right. Now, I understand that there was a personnel policy in effect in July 2023 when the agreement was entered into, and then the municipality adopted an updated personnel policy while Chief Swanson was chief,
Correct.
right? Okay. So I think what I'd like to do is enter them both into the record, and just in case there's argument or issue about which one applies, we will have a position on that, but I just want to not take any chances and introduce them both. So let's do that. So let's take a look at Exhibit 21. Tell me when you're there, Eric.
I'm here.
Okay. And is that a copy of the personnel policy in effect at the time the agreement with Chief Swanson was entered in July 2023?
It is.
All right. And there we see page 4 of the exhibit. States, it's got a section called termination under section 1 disciplinary process. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. And it says that most often employee conduct that warrants termination results from unacceptable behavior, poor performance, or violation of town, villages, policies, practices, or procedures. However, termination may result from conduct that falls outside those identified areas.
Correct.
Okay. And that's what was in place again when the agreement was signed. I also want to ask you to take a look at toward the top of that page 4. There's a paragraph discussing disciplinary possibilities. And do you see the sentence that begins "this means" at the end of the first paragraph at the top?
Yes.
Okay, would you tell the trustees what that part of the policy says? Read it slowly.
Council, can you just tell me what page that is? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's page 4 of the exhibit, which is Exhibit 21.
Okay, and which paragraph are we looking at?
So it's the top of the page. I'm not sure if that's the start of a paragraph or not, but it's the last sentence in the paragraph at the top.
Thank you.
This means that more or less severe discipline up to and including termination may be imposed in a given situation at the town and village's sole discretion.
Okay. And in the case of an employee subject to the hiring and firing authority of the town manager, do you understand the sole discretion there to mean you, the municipal manager's sole discretion?
I do.
All right. Now, this policy was superseded in 2024, August. So let's turn to the next page, Exhibit 22. And first off, will you confirm whether this is a personnel policy that the trustees and I guess the town select board also voted to adopt as an updated policy in August 2024?
I will. I'll just note that this version is not the signed version, but both boards did sign it in a public meeting.
Okay. And this one also has a section talking about potential for termination. And I'll turn your attention to page 29 and 30, which is employee discipline. So it's, I'll say again what we're looking at here. So it's Exhibit 22, and it's the personnel policy. We turn to page 29 and 30 of the personnel policy. At the bottom of 29 starts Section 9, which is employee discipline. And then I'm interested in asking the witness about what we see at the top of page 30. And Eric, could I just ask you to read the first sentence at the top there?
Employees are prohibited from engaging in conduct listed below and may receive discipline up to and including termination for doing so.
Okay. And through this bullet list, I'm going to ask you if there's a few things identified on here. Third bullet down is failure to effectively perform job duties on the list.
Yes.
Okay. And jump all the way down to the bottom bullet. Willful violation of town, village rules or policies, is that on the list?
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet down. Does that one say that a reason for discipline is leaving one's work assignment without appropriate authorizations?
Sorry, which one is that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth bullet down.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay. And there's others on this list, obviously.
Maybe two.
All right. Now, oh, by the way, let me take a quick detour here while we're talking about discipline and this personnel policy. You heard Attorney Fraz asking Sergeant O'Keefe about why, his thoughts about why he should have been or why he wasn't disciplined for giving a copy of the union no confidence letter to a reporter, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you understand that when a union issues a no confidence vote that there are certain protections afforded under the law with that activity?
I do.
Okay. And do you know what it's called? Is it called concerted activity?
I believe so.
Okay. Let me turn your attention to section 4.1.
Of the new policy?
Yeah, it's on page 5. Okay. I think this is the section that Attorney Frass was asking Sergeant O'Keefe about, 4.1 conduct of employees. And it says about 4 or 5 lines down that employees shall not defame a town or village employee, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then what does the very last sentence of that paragraph say?
This prohibition is not intended to interfere with employees' rights under Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act to engage in concerted efforts related to unions.
Concerted, what's the word?
Activities, sorry.
Okay. So do you have some understanding of whether the policy actually would not allow for discipline in connection with a union publicizing a no confidence vote?
That's my understanding of it, yes.
Now, so I have a crossroads here. I'm looking to the hearing officer for a second, Eric. So again, you know, we are of the view that it's the evidence that's come before the trustees today that determines whether or not there is just cause to support the disciplinary decision that was made. That the events of to how information was gathered, events unrelated to that information, really is not relevant. I've made that objection a couple of times during counsel's cross-exam. So my thought would be to not touch any of those subjects. However, I don't want to run the risk of losing the opportunity to cover those subjects on direct if those are subjects that counsel is going to be entitled to question and get into. So I guess I'm asking for sort of like a motion in limine here, a ruling in limine, whether Attorney Frass will be permitted to ask about the events, the chronology, if you will, that was part of her opening statement that, you know, brought us here today versus my more narrow view of relevance. And if so, I will take some time asking Mr. Duffy to share with us some of the chronology from his perspective.
Yep, just give me a moment.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Or would you rather not hear from me?
I would very much like to hear it from you and just trying to process the information. Thank you. Go ahead.
What I would say that is, of course, it's relevant how we got here today. That is it has impacted, the witnesses have talked about how they were invited to bring complaints. They have talked about what precipitated some of those complaints, the conversations with Mr. Duffy. I think how we got here today is critical in terms of evaluating the evidence, and especially since Mr. Duffy has taken an action around demotion, which he is saying is the appropriate intervention in this case. He is saying that that is within his assessment and qualifications, that he has reviewed everything to come to that decision. So how he came to that decision through this process in terms of the ultimate decision he made to terminate the chief's contract and demote him instead is critical to everything in this hearing.
And again, I would just, one sentence response to that is, today it's their decision. It's not his decision anymore.
Yeah, okay. This is my ruling on the issue. I think that to the extent that Manager Duffy formulated opinions about what the appropriate discipline was and when he formulated those views, I do think that's relevant because it speaks to the evidence and when the events occurred. So I don't think the manager is on trial in terms of the timeline, but I do think it's relevant in terms of why did he formulate his decision? Was the evidence good at the time that he was relying on it? And was it appropriate at the time and now ultimately? So I'm not going to tell you how to present your case, but that's the ruling.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you both. All right, so Eric, what I'm going to do then is ask you about some of the chronology that, you know, we've seen in Attorney Frass's opening statement. So, and there may be some leading here to try to expedite. I'll try to not overdo it. In October 2024, you received word at some point of a potential incident that might involve Chief Swanson. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And at the time, you heard it had something to do with a possible motor vehicle situation and a possible altercation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's something that came in via a citizen complaint to the department. Is that also right?
Yes, and then it was translated to me by Chris O'Keefe.
Okay. And at some point, part of the information that came to your attention was that Chief Swanson may have been at the scene and/or involved.
Yes.
Okay. You did not make any sort of, draw any sort of conclusions at that time?
No.
Okay. So shortly thereafter, you made a decision to place him on paid administrative leave.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And was paid administrative leave intended to be any sort of disciplinary action?
it was not.
Okay. Have his pay and benefits been affected in any way?
It is not.
Okay. And one of the, well, let's take a look at, first of all, let's take a look at Exhibit 2. You have it there?
Yes.
Is that the administrative leave notice that you issued?
Yes, it is.
All right. And is one of the directives in the administrative leave notice, third paragraph from the bottom, that during the period of administrative leave, he was not to access secure areas of police headquarters without prior approval from you.
Yes.
Now, what decision was made, if any, in terms of how to ascertain whether there was some potential involvement or failure of some obligation on the part of Chief Swanson in connection with the October incident?
It was to contract with the Vermont State Police to see if they come in and do an investigation, take it out of the hands of the Woodstock Police.
And it may seem obvious, but why was that thought to be the right call?
Because the information we had at the time was that the police chief could have been involved in the altercation, so we wanted to make sure that we were being as safe as possible.
All right. And then that process did get underway. Vermont State Police did whatever investigating it was going to do, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And additionally, around that time, am I understanding that you made a determination to submit a notice to the Vermont Criminal Justice Council?
I didn't make a determination. I was advised by council and VLCT to do that.
Okay. And for the sake of the trustees, I'm sure they'll be able to understand this, but just for the sake of this discussion today, there is a statute called Act 56 that basically says that when a chief of police may be involved in certain categories of conduct, that there's an obligation on the, in not so many words, basically a town or municipal manager to submit a referral to the council. Is that your
Correct.
understanding?
That's my understanding, yes.
And is that why you did send the information on to the council?
Yes, it is.
Is that the only reason you did?
It is.
Now, I know there were some things, that happened that we're going to talk about probably between what we just talked about and what I'm going to ask you about next. But it is true that some months later, the Vermont, well, let me back up. Let me strike that. It is true that sometime after the Vermont State Police began to make inquiry, that you received word that they were not pursuing any sort of criminal charges against anybody related to the situation, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the other thing is that also later, you heard from the Vermont Criminal Justice Council that they provided a copy of a notice that they had not found any violation of unprofessional conduct standards that are within their jurisdiction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We've already talked about it with some of the other witnesses. So the letter from the VCJC, if you will, is in evidence, and it is Exhibit 10.
Yes.
Okay. And we can see it's addressed to Chief Swanson. You received a copy of it at some point, is that right?
I did.
Okay. And if you turn to Exhibit 34, is that an email you received from the investigator from the VCJC dated February 10, 2025?
It is.
Okay. And is that the first notice you received that Chief Duffy, the result of their inquiry was a no finding regarding any unprofessional conduct under their statute?
It is.
Okay. And then there's another copy of the letter follows the email, right?
I believe it was attached, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, so as of February 10th, at least, you know that Vermont State Police is not taking up anything regarding the October matter,
Yep.
and that the VCJC is not taking up anything regarding the matter, right?
Correct.
Okay. But as we've heard today already, you became aware of employees raising concern over Chief Swanson's performance in that job unrelated to whatever did or didn't happen in that October motor vehicle situation.
Correct.
Okay. And with respect to the October motor vehicle situation, do you have some understanding of whether, despite Vermont State Police doing what it did, despite the VCJC doing what it did, whether there could be some circumstances under which you could still consider whether any conduct or failure to act at that time could be a grounds for potential discipline?
Objection. I thought this was completely off the table. He just said the October incident is not part of this case.
Attorney Clash?
Well, we are reviewing his process, and we're going to get to that point where he determined that there was no basis to include any potential conduct regarding Chief Swanson in that incident. But we're going to look at why that incident was still something potentially to consider up until the point he made his decision that he was not including it as a grounds for discipline. I think if I can make a proffer one more exhibit, I think it might help clear this up.
Yeah, if you could, because I'm just wondering, what does the board do with that? I mean, we're supposed to hear it, but not rule on that piece of it. because it's not part of the discipline. So this is not a jury, obviously, and I can instruct them accordingly in their deliberations, but still want to make sure that we're listening to evidence that only relates to things that are part of the discipline.
Yeah, and I'm reluctant to get into this as well because of limited relevance. But again, if we're going to talk about what are the steps, I mean, again, we have the chronology there, and we need to, I think, explain where Eric's thinking was in fitting it into the chronology, and that's all I'm trying to do here. We are not for a minute suggesting that he at this time thinks there's anything that may have happened in October that is any reason to discipline Chief Swanson.
I'm going to withdraw my objection. If Mr. Duffy wants to answer why he was still contemplating discipline relating to the October 13th incident, even after there was findings of no discipline and it's not part of this case, I'm withdrawing.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed, counsel. But I also think you can tailor your examination accordingly. Did you catch that, John? I think you can tailor your examination accordingly. If we can kind of.
Yeah, this is a small, just piece of the tracking the puzzle pieces. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 6, Eric.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead and read the whole sequence.
The whole email?
Well, I just want to skim it over so we can work backwards from the first email of October and bring it forward to November to help you. This exhibit I think will help explain part of what your process was. And since I guess that may be relevant, we're going to look at it.
Sure. Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
I'm really sorry. No, I just want you to personally look over the exhibit.
Oh, okay.
Look back if it's in reverse order. So the first email is October 14 from Eric, from Duffy to Brickell, and then just track what happened along those days. I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
All right. So we see here, you contact with the email that starts on the bottom of the first page of the exhibit, November 22nd. You email Christopher Brickell at the council. And you can see down, he's the executive director of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. And you're asking for guidance whether you do your own separate investigation, and it's up to the council to decide if there's anything that they think violated their standards.
Correct.
Okay. And then we see the email November 22nd from Brickell, right?
Yep.
And you see that the information there is, go ahead, what is the first sentence in the email from Brickell?
For clarification, you made the initial report to the council regarding the allegation as required by the allegation potentially involving the chief.
Okay. And that's accurate, right? You felt you were obligated to do that.
Correct.
Okay. And then take a look over at the second paragraph. Okay.
Yep.
Have you taken a look at that?
Yeah, sorry.
And what did you take from that information that you received when Executive Director Brickell is talking about that there are two different tracks?
If I could just back up for 1 second, we had this phone conversation, was a similar conversation on the phone on that original Monday in October. from that email, October 14th. So I got that information from him on the 14th.
Eric,
And-
so you
Oh,
slow
sorry,
down a little
sorry.
bit. Yep.
I had a phone conversation with the executive director on October 14th. He gave me the same guidelines he gave me in the email in November. This is for clarification on advice of counsel to make sure we were following the guidelines and we had it in writing. So my interpretation of it is that they were going to do their investigation and to see if what happened in that incident rose to their level of misconduct. But as a municipality, we had the ability to do our own investigation to see if any conduct was in violation of our policies.
So at that time, were you contemplating that it was possible, even if anything Chief Swanson may have been involved in was not going to be violative of VCJC policy, there was still potential that it could violate, say, some town rule or performance standard at the local level?
I'm going to object to the leading testimony or questioning. I've been patient, but I think it's getting out of hand.
Yeah, we've had a lot of leading questions, and I understand you're trying to move us along. Given the objection, can you ask that in an
Yes.
open-ended fashion?
Yes, and thank you. I agree with you, actually. Yes, so the question is, why did you think there might still be some reason to look at it at the municipal level if it was in the hands of VCJC and at some point the Vermont State Police?
Could you ask that question again?
Yeah, why would you think there'd still be some possible reason to have a municipal review, local investigator, when, this was in the hands to some extent with the council and the VSP at that point?
Yeah, almost immediately after that incident, when Chief Swanson was put on leave, employees came to me willingly with complaints outside of the scope of that original incident that I thought rose to a serious level that needed to be looked into.
Okay, well, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
But right now I'm asking whether there was still potential for municipal investigation around whatever may have happened in the motor vehicle situation.
Oh, yes, there was.
Did you still think that there was a reason that that the municipality would still have an interest in looking into that?
Sorry, yes.
And why would it be that, why not just wait to see what VCJC and the state police said? And if they said, no, we're not doing anything, that's the end. Why was that not your approach?
I think it was important because there's two different tracks. One was some of our own policies that were in place that weren't. It was my understanding that the state police was looking at that one incident to see if there's criminal activity. The council was looking to see if any activity rose to the level where the chief would be decertified. But there was still a level of misconduct that could be concerning to us on a local level.
Based on local policies?
Correct.
All right. And just again, as long as we're talking about this, may as well just make sure one more time. The decision you made, which you put in notice February 23rd, 2025, no reliance at all. As of that time, you decided you're not going to rely on anything that may have involved Chief Swanson in the October 2024 matter.
Correct.
All right. Now, let's take a detour here into the chronology of things, and let's go back in time to June of 2024.
Okay.
Okay, we've heard testimony earlier today about the fact that you provided a performance evaluation for Chief Swanson at the time.
Yep.
And without getting out and reading it, what was the upshot of the evaluation?
That besides a few minor things, he was doing a good job.
Okay. And by the way, while we're on the subject of doing a good job, you don't take any issue. You would agree that the town takes no position to the extent that when he was before he was chief, that then Sergeant Swanson or Officer Swanson, whether there was any minor performance things or not, but in general, satisfactory performer as a police officer.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. The town doesn't take any position to the contrary on that. Okay. So the, at the time you did that June 2024 evaluation, had you yet received the information that we heard from the witnesses during the hearing today regarding concerns they have about Chief Swanson's performance in the role of chief?
I did not.
Okay. At some point, you began to hear some of these concerns being stated, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Is Terry Poljacek one of the first people you heard from?
Yes, but I believe that was actually in the summer of 2023. I believe, in my recollection, it was only a few months into Chief Swanson being chief.
Okay. So that whatever Terry referred to you is not anything that really affected, I guess, the June 2024 evaluation.
No.
Okay. Is it the case that, you may receive some critical commentary by personnel, but not all critical information you receive is going to cause you to look at formal action?
Correct.
All right. Then, do you agree that the nature of concerns you started to hear employees may have around this time after October 2024 are similar to what you heard the employees testify about today?
Yes.
Okay. And so you decided to, just as it's stated in the emails that were presented earlier by plaintiff's counsel, they're in evidence, so I don't think it's leading to just say what they said, that you were going to involve an outside investigator in order to have an unbiased review of Chief Swanson's performance.
Correct, and that was also on the advice of counsel.
And so that process took place,
Yes.
okay? You also received the no confidence letter around the time that that process was taking place,
Yes.
November 22nd, I believe.
I believe so.
Okay. And did you request a no confidence letter from the union?
No.
Okay.
If I can make one point on that, my memory of the no conference vote was I got one on one day, then the second on the following day. I think someone today said it was the same day. I don't have a memory, but I thought it was 2 separate days, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Ultimately, the version that's Exhibit 7 there in the exhibits is the one that you understood was the union's kind of final official word on the subject of no confidence.
Correct.
Okay. Did you take lightly the fact that you got a no confidence letter?
No.
Okay. What did you think about it at that time?
I thought it was a very large step in conversations with employees early on after October. They all expressed concern about going public, about people knowing they were upset. And for the fact that they actually came together and did this was, I think, a big move for them. And it was, it had a massive impact on, how I view things going forward.
Okay. Just a second.
And if I just add to that, I think you heard from a lot of people today about their view of how a police department should be structured and how they should follow chain of command. So the fact that they felt this was a necessary step spoke volumes to me as well.
Now, to be clear, the timing is that the no confidence came some weeks after you had started to already hear the concerns that led you to bring in the outside investigator.
Correct.
That was fairly shortly after Chief was put on leave that the outside investigator came into the picture.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then you issued a January 2025 notice to Chief Swanson, which is Exhibit 9.
Correct?
January 10, 2025. Ultimately, you issued a later notice.
Correct.
Correct, but this was the first item you sent out describing reasons that you were considering taking disciplinary action.
Correct.
Okay. And you offered a chance to meet with him and his attorney,
Correct, yes.
and you did have that meeting.
Yes.
You received written feedback.
Out of the meeting, yes.
Okay. And ultimately, you did not, as a next step following that process, you did not immediately make a disciplinary action decision yet at that time.
No, I did not.
Okay. There was then, okay, so that's January 10th. And we know that we've heard testimony about something that occurred on February 20th.
Yes.
Okay. And no reason, I think, to rehash the accounts, but you heard the accounts of Beth Terrian and Michelle Sutherland about that Chief was supposed to come to the station for training records and that he visited them and presented the VCJC letter. You heard all that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, and then it got reported to you?
Yes.
All right. And did you consider whether that violated the directives of the administrative leave notice?
I believe it does.
Okay. And so we know that you issued a subsequent letter, which is Exhibit 28. Okay. And why don't you just give us before digging into it, what is this letter, February 20, 2025?
So it's the second letter. So after we met with Chief Swanson, we took what he said, went back and investigated things he said in that meeting against what we had, and made a determination some things would not be included going forward because they were not consequential. But this letter is details, it concerns with leadership, accountability, with unprofessionalism, and including the February 20th incident as well.
Okay. And why does this letter talk about things like leadership and professionalism and those sort of issues to a greater degree than the first notice you sent? Why were you looking at those subjects, I guess, more at this time?
We went back and read the transcripts of the Bill Burgess investigation and realized that it was a recurrent theme throughout those conversations of just a complete lack of leadership, low morale, no accountability, unprofessionalism, to the point where staff was talking about leaving if he came back. And I consider that a very serious concern and issue. So I want to focus on that because that was my thought process going forward. If there was going to be any discipline, is being based on those factors.
Okay. And again, not to harp on it, but as of February 20, am I correct that still there was there still possibility that the situation with the motor vehicle incident, okay, again, not misconduct to the level of VCJC or state police, but you hadn't yet ruled out whether there still might be something there at the at the municipal level that could be a factor.
Correct.
All right. Now, you received a written response from Chief Swanson's attorney to the February 20 notice,
Yes.
okay? And you considered the feedback, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And then you issued the February 23rd decision, which is Exhibit 14.
We stipulate that all of these exhibits that are being referred to are admitted. I agree with them.
Okay, all right. So why don't we just do some housekeeping for a moment, if we may? Thank you, council.
Okay, sorry, I
I
forgot.
want to just go through these numbers just so we have them, because I do want to keep a good record.
Right, I'm obviously not making Duffy qualify them or.
Yeah.
So I've agreed to them essentially, and I just want to make sure they're in.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I probably will refer to them as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so it's 1, 2, 6, 9, 14. We're just about to do 14. 21, 22, 28, and 34.
Thank you, and those are all admitted, given the stipulation. Carry on.
And so Eric, the old saying, the letter speaks for itself, but let's at least just refer to it here for a moment. The Exhibit 14. There we go. This is the notice that you made a determination that it was appropriate to demote Chief Swanson.
Yes.
Okay. And again, like we mentioned, I think during our opening comments, that on the last page of that document, it explains that you were not making the decision effective until after he had had an opportunity to go through a appeal review with the trustees.
Correct.
That's what we're doing here today.
Yes.
Okay. And you're going to defer to whatever decision the trustees make. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And does the February 23rd letter, it refers to what are some of the reasons that you found supported the discipline? Am I correct that in the bottom paragraph on page 1, that's where you advised that you were not counting any conduct in the October 13 traffic incident?
Yes.
Okay. Now, one other thing I want to ask quickly about, let's just take a second, is if you take a look back at exhibit excuse me, 28. Sorry to make you jump around a little bit.
It's all right.
I want to clear up one more piece because the 23rd letter refers back to the 20th letter, right?
Correct.
All right, and 28 is the letter from February
Yes.
28th. And on page 4, there's a list of policies that you cited as the conduct of concern possibly violating these policies. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the listed policies is, I'm not going to give the number, but the title of it is, this is on page 4 of that letter. The title of it is Off-Duty Police Action. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you rely on that off-duty police action policy, in fact, in making your demotion decision?
No.
Okay, so that was also ruled out as being any issue.
Correct.
Right. All right. Now, I just need a moment, please. All right. Take a look, if we could, at Exhibit 28. And I want to ask you about a couple of items that are listed in here as performance concerns, which I don't believe any of the witnesses talked about today.
Okay.
Okay. So one of them is
I'm going to object. If there's been no witnesses testifying about a performance concern, then why would we be talking about it today?
Well, I don't think I think this witness may have personal knowledge. Is that?
Oh, okay. If
That's
that's the case. Then fine.
okay, so on page 3 of the February 20th letter, which again, Exhibit 28, there's a few sentences, couple sentences down. Just slowly read the first 3 sentences there, if you would. Beginning with, on a similar note,
Okay.
out loud this time.
Oh, sorry. On a similar note, employees report that you have ignored calls and complaints from the public. For example, I myself had to deal with someone who had been calling you continuously and who you never called back. I am also in receipt of a complaint based on your handling of an alleged theft from M&T Bank in April 2024.
All right, and so let's take a look, if we could please, at Exhibit 8. And you can just thumb through it. Have you had a chance to familiarize yourself with that?
Yes.
Okay. And also, please take a look at Exhibit 3. Again, just enough to we can generally say what we're looking at. We're not going to get into details.
Okay.
Okay. Are Exhibits 3 and 8 information that led you to include in the February 20 notice the discussion of a complaint based on Chief Swanson's handling of an alleged theft from M&T Bank?
Yes.
And the information in there, you reviewed it, and it caused, just as it says in your letter, that did cause you to have concerns about how an issue was handled with a member of the public.
Correct.
And then you go down in the back to Exhibit 28 again, and third paragraph down.
On what page, sorry?
Yep, it's page 3 of the letter that is Exhibit 28.
Yep.
And 1, 2, 3, 4 sentence of name. Sentence that begins, "You also shared." Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, will you just read that sentence?
You also shared police evidence with your spouse via email.
Okay. And let's take a look, if we could, please, at Exhibit 15.
Okay.
Right. What are we looking at here? What is that? That's, you understand it to me.
So these are, looks like 6 different videos, probably webcams on Route 4, that shows a potential road rage incident. And Chief Swanson shared it via his town email with his husband.
And is that, you wrote about sharing police evidence with your spouse via email in the February 20 letter? Is that the matter you were describing?
Yes, it was.
All right. Now, you listened to all of the witness information today,
Hmm.
yes?
Yes.
You looked at the documents that the witnesses were discussing.
Yes.
We've already heard you say you reviewed and took seriously the no confidence letter.
Yes.
And the evidence from the witnesses, the evidence we just discussed, are those indeed the reasons that you chose to decide that that was appropriate to issue a demotion to Chief Swanson?
Yes.
Is it do you have a position whether all of that cumulative information shows poor performance on the part of the chief?
I do.
Okay, what is your view on that?
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, I forgot what the question I actually asked you. I do want to know, yes or no, did you determine as of February 23rd that all that collection of information demonstrated poor performance on the part of Chief Swanson?
Yes, I did. He was not providing leadership to the staff. He was not being accountable for things that are happening in there. He was not disciplining employees or providing training as needed. When we talked to him throughout this process, he refused to take accountability for how the employees felt, thinking it was just due to the incident in October, when we've heard today that it's actually much broader than that. The second was the steps that all his employees took to vote no confidence, citing a large lack of leadership, and talking about leaving the department if he comes back because they want someone who can lead. That would include Chris O'Keefe, who we heard today has started to professionalize the force and make them and provide leadership that they want. And also Beth, who is the supervisor dispatcher. She's the only one who can train new dispatchers that we have. As she mentioned today, she'll come in at a drop of a hat to provide coverage if needed. And so if those gone, we do not have a functional police department. And that's imperative for the village to succeed. Finally, the actions on February 20th are the exact opposite of what Mr. Swanson said he would do when I spoke to him in January. He talked about coming in and being able to fix the issues with the employees. On February 20th was his first interaction with them in 4 months. And as you heard today, he left them feeling uncomfortable, unsafe, and threatened, and that they would be retaliated against. And beyond that, he was insubordinate, going against the policy set out in the admin letter.
So what you just described is some of your thinking behind why all of the evidence indicates poor performance. Is that
Yes.
fair? Okay. Are you limiting to just what you described, or would you still refer back to the document?
I was over back to the February 20th document as well.
And the February 20th document cites a number of town policies.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at that.
What exhibit is it again?
Yep, we'll get it. We'll get you there in a second. So it's exhibit 28.
Good job.
And on the bottom of page 4 are policies. One of them has been basically crossed out on
Mhm.
the police action. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are WPD policies.
Yep.
And then we have 1, 2, 3 that are personnel policy or employment agreement items, correct?
Yes.
And I just want to, let's see these policies here. So let's take a look at exhibit 24. You have that there?
Yes.
It's WPD 200, professional rules of conduct.
Yes.
And again, this is the local municipality policy, right? We're not
Correct.
looking at a state policy here. Is that right?
Yes.
And when you go to, I'm just going to, don't jump around too much, but let's just look together at where these things are in the document. I don't intend to go into any detail with you at this time, but so we see that there is listed in the February 28th letter on page 4. There is policy 200.4.A.2, which is on page 2 of the set of policies, and that's conduct and becoming an officer, right?
Yep.
And that includes shall not engage in any conduct that impairs efficient and effective operation of the department. See that?
Yes.
Okay. Another one we see is 4B1B. And that's on page 5 of the policy. At the top, it's the little view, which says that officers shall not, under claim of authority, divulge or permit to divulge information for anything other than an authorized purpose. Is
Yep.
that right?
Correct.
And by the way, I should ask right now, have you ever yourself authorized Chief Swanson to share police evidence with his family members?
No.
And the next one we see is 200 dot capital Roman 4, capital B, capital 2, expectations of privacy. That's down at the bottom
Yep.
of that page 5. And we don't need to get into the details of it, but you referred to it, and the trustees can look at that policy and see whether they think the facts are applicable there. There's another one which is, now we move on to exhibit 25, which is additional policies. Woodstock Police Department policies and procedures. .4.1. we may have a photocopying problem, trustees. I apologize. We may need to correct that exhibit in the record. But anyway, that's, we see neglect of duty, leaving duty post, and unsatisfactory performance, like you just said. Those would be items featured in exhibit 25. Is that your understanding, Eric?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we'll have to correct that exhibit after the hearing if that's acceptable.
That's fine. Like soon after, we're talking tomorrow or something.
Oh, yeah. And then there's a site to the personnel policy. So now we're looking at exhibit 22. Section 4.4, which is on page 8 of the policy. It talks about things like attendance, regular work hours, etc. And that's a policy that you believe the information showed was violated. Is that right?
Yes.
By the way, while we're on page 8 here, you see section 4.5, which mentions flexible working arrangement?
I do.
Okay. What does that sentence say?
Employees have the right to request a flexible working arrangement pursuant to 21 BSA 309.
Did you ever grant Chief Swanson a flexible working arrangement?
I did not. I have been flexible with employees, but I consider a flexible working agreement an actual agreement between me and the employee that we document. And typically it is, instead of working 8 to 4:30, you're working 7:30 to 8 for childcare issues. It's not come and going as you please.
And then we've already talked earlier, we're not going to do it again, but the letter lists the employment agreement. Well, actually, I guess let's take a look at that so we can see what it says. The employment agreement, job description, going all the way back to exhibit 1. It's the last page, second to last page of the exhibit.
On the employment agreement or the job description?
Well, it's in the job description.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry about that. Second to last page of all of exhibit 1.
Okay.
It says that there are regular hours from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., right?
Yes.
So the job description is referenced in the employment agreement, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
In fact, it was an attachment to that.
Yes.
And the job description says you have a regular Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Correct.
Is it fair to say that had Chief Swanson come to you and said, well, I'd like to consider, changing my regular hours from 7 to 3 or 6 to 2, that's the kind of thing you would have taken up and considered?
If there was a reasonable reason why, and if the coverage could still be fully covered, then yes.
Now, there was some testimony about how prior chiefs would come in and be there in uniform at 6 a.m.
Mhm.
You heard that?
Yes, I did.
Would you have had any problem if, again, reasonable coverage being in place, if Chief Swanson said, well, this says 8 to 4, I'm going to be there in uniform every day from 6 to 2?
Again, as long as there was still coverage available, then yes, that would probably be okay with me.
And also, the employment agreement does, in fact, talk about having to work, this being a salary position, having to work extra hours beyond the regular 40-hour schedule.
Correct.
And, but in fact, this agreement, go ahead, strike that. All right, so we talked about those are some of the policies and provisions that you determined as of February 23rd. The information that we heard today showed your estimation were not met by Chief Swanson.
Correct.
Now, I think you touched on it a little bit already, Eric, in some of the response you gave. But I would like to ask you, do you feel, did you consider whether some discipline less than demotion could be acceptable here? And just explain to the trustees why you decided no.
Yeah, throughout this whole process, I considered all types of discipline. And at the end of the day, I think I already touched upon it, but one was the no confidence votes by all employees, full-time employees that fell under Chief Swanson. What they said in the no confidence votes, and then the fact that almost all of them who came here today said they would leave if Chief Swanson came back as chief. One of my goals is to have a functional police department as municipal manager for the residents in the community. And based on what I've heard today and over the last few months, that's not possible if Chief Swanson comes back as chief. Additionally, what happened on February 20th really impacted my decision in the sense of it was the exact opposite of how someone should treat their employees, especially when you want to come back and repair relationships and build bridges. He made them feel threatened, he made them feel afraid for their jobs, and he made them feel uncomfortable. And he was insubordinate to the rules I had placed before him in October. With all that said, as we mentioned before, he was a good officer in the past, and so my belief is he could still come back and be an officer and help the community, but just not in a chief role.
As part of your decision-making process, take into account the nature of the work as chief, like the type of employment that entails. Like, how does that, if anything, factor into your decision that Chief Swanson, the best result here is that you not proceed further as chief?
Yeah, the chief of police of Woodstock has to be an ambassador to the community. They have to be out there providing leadership, strategy, policies, discipline, really engaging with the community, building that trust up with everyone from their employees to residents and tourists. As a department head, they have to be my eyes and ears in the department so I know what's going on. I have to have trust in the judgment and full trust in them and how they're going to act day in and day out. The police chief is one of the most visible positions in Woodstock, and with that it carries a lot of weight of expectations. And that's how I view police chief.
And what you heard the employees describe in terms of their observations, their interactions, what does that tell you, if anything, or what did you think, if anything, about how that relates to whether, putting aside the outside world issues, how he would or wouldn't be able to continue to function effectively as chief?
Yeah, I think it's clear that he cannot. These issues that have been going on for a long time. He was not. He said he was unaware of them, which means he was not in touch with his employees and how they were feeling and what they needed. Coming in late, leaving early, not finishing cases, withholding information from me, is all facts that it's just very difficult for a chief to be successful if they don't have the trust of their employees or the supervisor.
You said withholding information from you. What are you referring to?
So I was touched on a little bit earlier when Sergeant O'Keefe wrote up those two officers. Chief Swanson came to me a few days later, said there was a small issue in the department, and that one of their officers got a verbal warning. At that time, he did not want to let me make it an official verbal warning. And after some conversation, he sent me an email describing the verbal warning. What I found out in the last few weeks was, as Chris O'Keefe said today, that Chris O'Keefe actually gave them 2 officers written warning each. That information was never brought to my attention.
Did you now know what you know now, when you issued the, February 23rd notice, or is that something new since then? If you remember.
I can't recall. I'm sorry.
What, putting aside job descriptions and, whatever, what do you look to for a department head? What are your expectations?
Yeah, like I said briefly, my eyes and ears. They have to be my spokesperson in the department. They have to be able to lead that department, give them guidance, leadership, be able to provide training or discipline if needed. They need to be present for them. They need to support them. They also need to be able to work with me. I need to have trust in them. So as we talk about this job being a working chief, I'm a working municipal manager. I'm not behind my desk just, yelling at people or organizing things. You're actually doing work. So I need to trust my department heads that they're out there doing the job they're hired for, and the staff's doing the job at a level that is worthy of Woodstock.
Do you have some sense of how you want the employees to see their chief?
With respect, that they provide the right leadership to them, that they provide the training for them, that they hear them, that they support them, and that they're going to make the department the best department can be.
Is leading by example an issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's with any leader, leading by example. People are going to mimic what you do. So if you show up late, they're going to show up late. If you show up early, they're going to show up early. If they see you working hard, they're going to work hard. If they see you taking 3-hour lunches, they're going to think a 2-hour lunch is okay for them.
And did that, did the information you're giving employees today align with any concern on your part about the kind of role model, serving as an example?
Yeah, what I heard today was the complete opposite of what a role model should be as a department head.
I think we have a few more exhibits to admit here. So we have 3.
So before you go on, let's just be clear. Is there a stipulation from council that these are admissible, or
No, but I'll agree.
there's not an objection?
Not an objection.
Thank you. Okay. 3 is offered.
8. 9. And again, 9 is offered for the purpose of demonstrating process, not because, as again, the 23rd notice says, not because the manager is asking the trustees to consider the content of that January notice as a grounds participant. He is not.
Okay. We've already admitted 9 for that purpose.
Okay. 14.
We've already admitted 14 also. But you did pass 4. I don't know that we've talked about 4.
Yeah. Okay, yes. I guess we do need to look at exhibit 4. Eric, could you turn to that, please?
Yep, I'm here.
So you just mentioned that you felt Chief Swanson didn't share information with you about a disciplinary situation with Officer Charlton.
Correct.
Is that right? And so what's the significance, if any, of exhibit 4 of this June 19th, 2024 event?
To me, it shows that he's withholding information on discipline, potentially because he didn't feel comfortable providing discipline to his employees. And, and that, he purposely withheld information from me as a supervisor on what's happening inside his department.
So move to admit.
Council, are you not objecting to 4?
No.
4 is admitted.
I think we already have 8.
We have everything through and including 14, and then 15 through 18 we have not talked about.
Yeah, so 15 we need to admit.
Okay. Council, no objection
Which one's
to, to 15, the,
Emails between Chief Swanson and Mr. Seibel.
On what? Oh, on the, yes, that's fine.
We're not going to submit.
But the only thing I'm wondering about, you said things from the January 20th letter that were cleared by Vermont Council weren't included, but that was and is, so I'm a little confused.
We're not moving 16 through 18. 21 and 22 are already in. 24 and 25, those are the policies. We need to fix 25, but we move addition of the exhibits.
That's fine.
you're on 25, you skipped 23,
23, we're not planning to submit.
okay? 24 is offered.
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
please.
Just put it in ours. Yeah. I we'll do it in our case. Let me just take it. Okay.
24, we're up to? Is there an offer on 24 and is there an objection on 24
I'm sorry, what?
Let's offer both 24, 25.
and 25?
I know what to-
Council,
Where are
any
we?
objection on 24, 25? for
It's just the
policies?
policies.
Yeah, those are fine.
Okay,
We're skipping 26 and 27 for now. They come up and redirect, but they're just the statutes.
okay.
28, I believe, is already admitted.
And so is 29?
29 is already admitted. We are not planning to submit 30, 31, or 32. We are reserving on 33.
Okay.
Oh.
34 and 35 are already admitted.
And 36 is the investigative report by Mr. Burgess.
Council, do you have any objection on 36, the investigative report by Burgess?
No.
Okay. 36 is offered and admitted, and 37 is already admitted.
Can you actually take a 3-minute recess? We're not going to talk to the witness, just that sort of.
Yes,
When is their next break?
we're upon it. So while we're having a little colloquy here, my thinking would be to take a break and then allow you to take up cross afterward. Are you on board?
I would like that.
Okay, thank you. Have a 3-minute break, please, Council. Yeah, go for it.
No, go ahead. How long?
Okay, let's get back on so we can get to a break. Reconnoiter at that point.
Okay. Do have a couple of just quick points to wrap up.
Okay.
Eric, have you looked through police department personnel files since Chief Swanson has been out on leave?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And did you make any assessment of whether from the time Chief became chief through the time he went out in October 24, whether any disciplinary notices were entered into any department personnel files?
None.
You determined there were none?
None that I saw, no.
Okay. We asked you about some of the concerns that, all the compilation of information that you have and that's involved in your decision. One of the concerns I didn't ask you about, I don't think, was have you given any thought to whether there's any issue with regard to the reputation of the Woodstock Police Department at stake here?
Yes, I think if the majority of the department left, employees that have substantial detriment reputation on the whole, Woodstock and the department as a whole. I don't foresee being able to then recruit good officers, especially in these times, to come and work for our department if they believe they're not going to get the leadership and training that they need. Additionally, what I've heard today and in the past, it does create a massive risk liability for the village on something that could happen. It could happen wrong if the right procedures are not followed, if the right training is not provided, the right leadership is not provided, and that could be very detrimental to Woodstock as a whole.
Okay, I don't have any further questions for you at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's a good spot to break. It's 6:44. And it feels crazy to say this, but I think we should resume at 8 o'clock, if that works for folks. And you will be under examination again, under oath again. I mean, usually the admonition is if we're on cross and then we go on a break to come back to cross, you can't speak to counsel. I think that rule, I actually don't even know how to apply that if we're going on a break after direct. Do you folks have any impressions of that? Do you have any directives?
Well, I guess what I would say is, I don't think there's any prohibition against conferring with a witness during direct, so I can't see how there'd be any issue with the space between direct and cross as long as cross is not underway.
Conferring with the witness during direct, I'm confused. What does that mean?
There's no, like, if we went to lunch and our witness was on the stand before and after lunch, there's no rule against us talking with our witness during the lunch break.
Yeah, that is basically true. It's just really cross as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's fair game. So that's how we'll leave it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 We'll see everybody back here at 8 o'clock sharp and we'll get going again. Thank you. Yes.
Did you say it's moving to Zoom, or that it will be on Zoom then as well?
I just said we'll be restarting at 8 o'clock. I don't know.
Zoom.
Resume. Yeah. Yeah. We'll take it up again.